It is perhaps the only time I regret that my gift is of gab and not of singing, because I cannot lead us into the singing of our anthem. But I hear that we have some singers among us, so the tech people are going to make sure that we are properly guided as we share the reverence, respect for this island that we call Jamaica land we love. Told you. Told you. Thank you so much for standing. Don't sit yet. We're going to have prayers. So let's just have a prayer first and then we can sit. Rev?
The anthem itself is a prayer. Lord, we thank you for today, this day that you have made. God, we are grateful for the rain. Yes, as pointed out, because yes, it's blessing. It's confirmation of what it is that we're doing. But we're also grateful because the heat is unbearable. And so we're thankful to you again. And so, Father, I pray that you hasten the footsteps of those who are coming, and that they too will see the rain as just blessing, and that it will not be a hindrance for them to come. So as we have gathered as the Advocates Network and partners and friends, and those in, oh Father, Zoom land and all the other online platforms, we're grateful for them. And as we're here, Father, and we come to discuss, to talk about matters concerning Fiwi Jamaica, Father. We pray that you help us to put our hearts and minds together. And God, we don't want this to just be a thought, but we pray that it will cause a rippling effect, that people will begin to have these conversations. And especially our young people, Father, that they begin to think about what a move like this means. And two, we need to be a part of this conversation. We need to be the voice that really resonates and to aid us in moving forward to become a republic. So, Father, we leave everything in your hands and we glorify you now. In Jesus' name, and everybody say, amen.
Thank you, Reverend Jason Downer. I'm not sure if I am feeling the love and warmth towards Dr. Hamilton on laying hands upon me to ask me to guide you through these proceedings, but I have a little bit of a mixed feeling because I'd like to be seated there to hear and be part of it, but it's okay. And I'll tell you why. Advocates Network is a coming together of several different organizations, different entities, everybody coming together to understand and appreciate that there is a role that we must play if we want Jamaica to be a better place. So we shed the identities, we shed whatever areas you come from, whatever agency you come from. My name is Daniel Archer, and in the real world, I pretend to be a lawyer by day, and my most motivating activity at this time is as Principal Director for the National Integrity Action. I don't stand before you today as either. I am Daniel Archer, a proud Jamaican. So as a Jamaican, I come before you, and what resonated in my thoughts as I sought to prepare this morning was, you remember the song you used to sing when you go primary school? Can't sing it for you now. I'm going to give you a little line. Jamaica, land of beauty, we promise faithfully to serve thee with our talents and to bring our gifts to thee. Jamaica, we will always, in honor of thy name, work steadfastly and wisely and never bring thee shame. From a riverside to mountain, from Canefield to the sea, our hearts salute Jamaica, triumphant, proud, and free. That is why we are here. We are triumphant, we are proud, and we are free. And this event culminates after 60 years when none of us were, well, I can't speak for me. I wasn't even conceived then, much less to have had the opportunity to be part of a discussion about how I would like to be governed. But today we have the opportunity, I have the opportunity of determining, of saying to my colleagues and my friends, hey, let's get together. Let's hear from each other as to what we would like to see in the new constitution that will govern my children's children and those who come after my children's children. Because today, all we are saying, all we are asking is for an opportunity to have our voices heard. And that is why you're here. So it's a floor that will be open to you. And as we share the evening with you, you will be given information. Notice I said information. We're not telling you what we think. We're not telling you what we say. And I think I don't have to apologize, Professor, for my break into the vernacular. I am well positioned to do so. Thank you. We're not telling you what we say. We are telling you though, see information here, take it up, listen, ask your questions. Because going forward, what we want is to be heard. And this is the beginning of the segments, the sessions, the opportunities to be heard. So we'll start the proceedings, having given you the official opening remarks and blessing, because you know in Jamaica, if you know, bless the thing, it not go work. We're gonna share with you some videos. Are we ready, sir? We're good, excellent. So at the onset, I mentioned to you that Advocates Network is a grouping of entities, and this entity wishes to add its voice to what we're doing. Gender-based violence and land and beach team, those are the persons who are interested in that particular area and have a desire to see me more done in that area. They will provide us with a video sharing now what their take on it is. Maestro, it's your turn, sir. One of the things I want you to remember as you watch these videos, it's that it's sharing information. 2021. Information for you to ask questions about. And let me tell you something that is an open secret. You can stone me afterwards or you can reward me, but it's the truth. We must be guided by the reality that everything we want, we won't get. But what is most important is that we are heard.
In 2021, when a local video of a man violently beating a woman with a stool went viral, the Advocates Network was birthed to advocate for human rights through the rejection of gender-based violence. Our advocacy for legislative reform and accountability deepened when we learned that the perpetrator of that very public episode of intimate partner violence sat in our House of Parliament. Today, he remains unrepentant and unpunished, even as violence against various vulnerable groups continues. We forthrightly and forcefully reject all such incidents of violence under our banner of human rights advocacy. We raise our voice and we raise our fists against gender-based violence to give support to all who suffer from this and other forms of violence. We call upon you, especially our young people, to join us in this fight. We say we now ease up.
My fellow Jamaicans, let's look critically at land, wood, and water justice. The hyenas dub this place Jamaica, the land of wood and water. As we debate constitutional reform, justice demands that we, the people of Jamaica in the 21st century, do not repeat the colonial history of land dispossession, overexploitation of natural resources, and the oppression of our people. The land Jamaica the Europeans stole from the Taínos was not given to the Africans after they slaved it for hundreds of years. It stayed in the hands of those who captured it. High rates of squatting in this country is a land justice issue. It is connected to our colonial past and the approach to land that exclude the majority of those who descended from Africans enslaved in Jamaica, Indians indentured in Jamaica, and those who are striving to make this land truly belong to the people. Today, after 60 years of independence, we are witnessing the loss of rights to family land, loss of green space, loss of access and rights to the beach, and the other waterways, especially for tourism development. We are witnessing the limiting of rights to nature in the continuing to push to mine that which should remain in the earth. Constitutional reform must, in the 21st century, make provisions for protection of the natural resources of Jamaica and for access and rights to land, wood, and water for the broadest cross-section of the Jamaican people.
Did we just see the AN Diaspora contact, the lady who never sleeps? That's Miss Rosemary Bender. She never sleeps. Can we hear from her? It must be her bedtime, but she never sleeps. It's not her time, but we just saw her. So she's making herself available even though she's not live? Oh, she's sleeping now. Oh, that's amazing. She never sleeps. This would not have been possible without sponsorship. And it certainly wouldn't be possible without our legion of persons online. I don't want you to cuss me, so I'd like to specially say to you, good evening. We cannot vex say you're not here in person, but we're still sending you some love and some appreciation that you've taken the time to join us on Zoom. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to pretend I speak Spanish now. The Duolingo hasn't really elevated to more than being able to read it. But I do understand that our main sponsor, Mayberry, is here, and Miss Carrie Berry Tape. Did you hear the tape? That is Spanish, the Colombian surname. She's here to hand over a check to Advocates Network, contributing to making this really happen today. And our co-chair, Robert Stevens, will accept them. So Dr. Hamilton, you're joining us as well? Chair and co-chair.
Thank you very much. This makes it all possible, guys. We don't have a lot of corporate sponsors yet. Yeah. But we are very proud to say that Mayberry is the first one that has jumped on board.
Thank you, Mayberry.
In cash. Absolutely. And I want to say a special thanks to Chris Berry in particular, who made this happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't move. You want me to point at the figure? All right. It's a very important figure. Come on, for the cause.
It's a convenient time to invite the board members who are here, the board members from AN. Could you please come up? You know, photo ops are important.
All right, and we need to make it clear that we're not ease up. This is a good part of our team, And I think it's important to recognize that you cannot do all of this without having a team. The fact is that everybody up here is a volunteer, and we are proud volunteers to be able to bring this event on. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Prof. Come on in. Oh, come on in, come on in. Charles. Yeah, where is Charles?
The great bald-headed one. Come on, let's go.
You appreciate that with much seriousness, there has to be some jest. It makes levity, makes life possible.
There's another important factor I want to point out. You notice that there are few men and only a woman. Yes, and we love the balance. And guess what? We have great gender balance and we're happy. All right, ready? Let's go. We're all saying cheese. Where's the man?
We're not either.
We're not easy.
Thank you so very much, board members. You're having too much fun. Can we get back to the rest of our program? No, ma'am, I did not start it. Part of our presentation, as you can see, has a lot to do with videos, and most of these videos have at least a 3-minute time span. They do come from members and connected organizations who wish to share things that they think are important to Jamaica and part of the discussions that we're having. Always remember, the purpose of having REPUBLIK today and REPUBLIK until we come to the end of the road in these conversations are to hear the voice of the people. We cannot stress that enough. People participation is important. It is how we as Jamaicans make our voices heard when it comes to determining things such as who governs us, how do they govern, and why they govern. And let me give you another secret. Governance are not just to collect tax. Governance are not just to determine law. Governance is how, as a people, we wish to interact with each other. So when we're setting the laws, we must set them with people in mind, and the people must understand them. If we are choosing leaders, we must be able to choose leaders who represent us and who understand, most importantly, they work for us. They are our representatives. It is not just a point to say that they are servant leaders, but a true thing. We are the masters as the people, and they are the ones who work on our behalf. This is an opportunity to change the game. So do not remain silent and do ourselves a favor. Entertain contending views. It is only when we listen to each other that we can properly understand each other. So we're now going to have a video presentation from the diaspora. Are we ready for that? Ms. Sav, are we ready for the diaspora? Excellent.
My fellow Jamaicans, thank you for being here today. My name is Rose Francis Binder, and I bring greetings from the diaspora. I live in Germany, and I am a very proud member of the Advocates Network. As we embarked on our REPUBLIK campaign, it was such a great opportunity to speak with our Jamaicans who are living here away from home. But we didn't only speak to Jamaicans here in Europe, we spoke to Jamaicans in Great Britain, we spoke to Jamaicans in Belize, we spoke to Jamaicans in America, We spoke to Jamaicans in Canada. We encouraged them to get together and speak with each other. We encourage them to start with sharing their knowledge. We encourage them to have dialogue with others. We encourage them to engage in their different groups and to support any kind of a campaign that's going on that's promoting advocacy, especially when it comes to improving Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, the Advocates Network really spearheaded the momentum to get Jamaicans to start talking with each other and to start saying what kind of a republic, if any, they would like to have. We got them talking about things relating to the Constitution. Jamaicans from all walks of life here in the diaspora talked about all kinds of topics and themes as it relates to their homeland and as it particularly relates to the Constitution and also to the new Jamaican Republic that they are all dreaming of, getting ready to participate in, motivating others to be hungry about it, trying to find their best ways to make sure that they simplify the messages, listen to each other, and try to find the best way forward. I am so proud of this campaign and what it has brought. It has opened up our eyes. All of us have learned something, and we are prepared going forward to stand strong in the fact that more education is needed. That is what we have heard from the people who have spoken. And not only is more education needed, but we need more time to work through the things in our Constitution that's really going to make sure that we're not just changing the Constitution to become a republic or to get rid of the king. We are making changes, or we would like to see changes made to the Constitution that's going to make Jamaica become a better place with better governance, which means less corruption, which means Jamaica working for all of us to be a better place, not only to live and do business, but also to thrive and to enjoy that prosperity that is rightly ours. As I can hear in the diaspora, I hear this new kind of a taking ownership and this new kind of a wanting to participate in what is truly ours. I thank all of you that are here today, and as we go forward in the rest of our program, to hear from others and also to see a clearer picture of how we have to proceed. We now ease up on a Fiwi Republic. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time, and I wish you a nice, very profitable rest of the afternoon. Thank you very much.
I do hope Miss Rose is taking a nap. Like I said to you at the beginning, she never sleeps. No matter what time it is, she seems always available to provide information. Hear me better now? We have a live presentation, and it takes, I feel very honored to be able to pick on this person just now, Reverend Newton. Yes, I get to pick on you on this occasion. On the last occasion, you picked on me.
The Bible says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord, I will repay. Friends, good afternoon. Let me first of all introduce myself as a fully paid up, fully registered member of the Advocates Network. I haven't paid a cent as yet. And I'd like to add that there are several other members of the council, well, maybe not several, but other members of the council who are members. My responsibility at this moment is to highlight you on what I believe is the important issue that the council has embarked on over the last few days in relation to our campaign, the national campaign for the transformation of our country. On Tuesday evening, we met at Bethel Baptist Church for what we called Conversation on the Constitution. And if I might say, that really probably was the first of several, because we hope to have a second in Maypen on Wednesday, and a third in the inner city, probably at Alpha, the following Wednesday, and so on and so on and so on. What happened on Tuesday is that we were able to have conversations based on presentations made by Professors Rosalia Hamilton, Trevor Monroe, Tracy Robinson, and Miss Jeanette Calder, who answered 4 questions based on what we feel were the important issues we needed to address at that point in the engagement of the constitutional conversation. And what came out of it was what we call the Bethel Accord. And I think that terminology came up because the conversation was so vigorous that one member, one participant demanded that we leave there with something tangible. And the word accord was floated, and we just latched onto it and did so. And the 2 items which the accord called for are, one, that the bill which is to be promulgated in the parliament be seen and interrogated by the people of Jamaica before it goes to the parliament. And the second is that the deliberations and the processes of the Constitutional Reform Committee be fully publicized, live streamed, and henceforth, and commencing immediately, be made available to the people of Jamaica as a matter of course. That, in a nutshell, is what the accord called for, and that is what we are looking for and pressing for, because we now ease up. Thank you.
I was thinking that as we come together this afternoon, how historic this opportunity is. It is perhaps in my living memory, and perhaps yours, more than likely, the first time that as Jamaicans, we have literally shed our political affiliations and expectations. It is perhaps the first time that we never had to say to people, we'll give you something to come out to support. It's more than likely the first time that I didn't have to tell anybody, mega serve you some food, to encourage you to come out. People are willing to just be part of this conversation. And it tells us that people are hungry for knowledge. So let's not waste this opportunity. Let's take the opportunity to listen to our brothers and sisters, whether they're here in Jamaica or outside of Jamaica, because at the end of the day, it's one love. And we all are here for the same reason. We want a better Jamaica. Always remember that when we share information to get more information. Not to make somebody feel less or somebody to feel more, but just for us to be able to have the benefit of the information so we can make the best decision possible. So we talk to persons who are here. We'll talk to persons outside of Jamaica. I think now we have a presentation from Silborn, or youth, from the youth diaspora. Let's hear what he has to say.
That we cannot disassociate or shut down or cow down the voice of the youth in a key moment like this, because the youths are the future. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I'm putting it over to you guys, Narika, Asha, Tara, and Shamar, as to the way forward. Now, I want to just ask you this first question is, what's your thoughts on what is happening in regards to the Jamaica becoming a republic? Just your thoughts without any specific question to it. And I'll go first to Asha. What's your thoughts on this whole drive and this excitement in the air?
Well, personally, I think that it's a good thing, a good discussion that we're having, first of all. And the fact that it's on the table, I know it's something that's been in the work for years now. So the fact that it looks like progress is being made is a good first step, in my opinion.
Fantastic. And Shamar in Jamaica?
And where we're moving now, it raises several things for me, and I wish I could speak about them all. But
To Thara in the UK.
My thoughts on the beginning of constitutional reform.
Yeah.
I would say I'm on a similar page to Asha so far. This is a conversation that has been ongoing for decades. On both sides of the political aisle, there have been statements and promises to look into the constitution and remove the monarch as head of state. But within my lifetime, within the time that I've observed politics, this is the furthest that we've come in terms of actually addressing that and looking at the constitution and assessing it. And I think that that's an excellent development. It's really interesting to see that actually take place in Jamaica. And I can only hope that we progress well. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Thara. And Narika?
Okay, great. I think I am going against the group because I feel that it's not enough. I'm not saying that we haven't done a tremendous amount of work, especially with what we have, but from like when my grandmother was a child, this discussion has been happening, and the same points have been going over and over in a circle, and we haven't come to a grounded conclusion. And I think although we have gotten to the point where they have made a more detailed plan and they are moving towards it, there are still problems as such. They have not informed the people. There are people that are my age and younger who don't even know what it means to be a republic. And they are having all these discussions and they are excluding a majority of the population. And that is my big problem with it. I think that we are still stuck at a place where we shouldn't be, especially with a discussion that is coming from years and years of building.
I think the lesson there is quite clear. Let's be part of the discussion. Let's hear. Let's have the information being shared. Let us ask questions. As properly said, we've been having discussion for a long time, but this is the first time that we are making our voices heard by saying, I feel we're Republic. Here we out now. Invite us into the conversation. Share what you're doing. Share the papers that you're looking at. The challenge is that many of us feel that we are kept outside because we don't have university degrees or we're not the politicians who have been selected to lead the process. And we want an opportunity to be heard. And that is why this afternoon, Advocates Network is sharing this room, sharing this information so that we can be in a place that we're all on the same page. Every good conversation, though, has some signposting. So if you're into public speaking or debating, you'll have to ask yourself, so what are the signposts for this conversation? I'm going to share them with you. So when you continue to listen to the videos, I want you to ask yourself these questions. And these are the questions that when you don't have the answer to, you can ask the questions and hear what other people have to say so that we can arguably be on the same page. Do you want to be involved in changing Jamaica's constitution? If so, how? And if not, why not? This is a question not just for you, but for your household. Rev is here. I was thinking about Joshua, and he says, as for me and my house, I will serve the Lord. Yes, that's my mantra too. But as for me and my house, I'm a servant to Jamaica. So I want to be a part of the discussion. I want to know how, where, and why, and what you're doing and how come. What's your answer? I will share the questions with you as we go forth, but ponder that one while we watch the next video. We'll have another video? You frightened me.
Hi, my name is Oda Morgan, President and founder of Catholic Country Warriors. It is my profound belief that Jamaica should abandon the British monarchy and the parliamentary system and move towards a federal constitutional republic. and not a parliamentary republic. In a federal constitutional republic, the president is the executive and also head of government. In a parliamentary republic, the president is a figurehead, just like the governor general that we have today. And the prime minister and opposition leader are actually the government. We need 3 separate branches of government and separation of powers. We need a legislative branch, a judiciary branch, and an executive branch headed by the government. We should also have the ability to vote for our Senate, vote for our Congress, and also vote for our president. We should also have a ballot that includes us voting for the commission of police, and we should have at least 3 commissioners of police, 1 for each county, Cornwall, Middlesex, and Surrey. We need regional managers to develop the regions independently of the central government. And they have sheer power between the local government and the central government. What we have now is a dictatorship handed down from our colonial masters, which have done us no good other than create a system of first out the gate, winner takes all, and the people have no say. Over the past 40 years, we have seen the erosion of our constitutional rights. We have seen degradation to our culture, crime and violence, and a government that is unable to stem crime and violence and to alleviate poverty and to rebuild and firm up infrastructure. Part of our constitutional reform should include reparations and also regional development, not just by the central government, but by regional leaders and developers and managers. How do we do this? I believe the best way to do this is to get the people of Jamaica involved. The Teachers Association, the Nurses Association, the Taxis Association, police, soldiers, farmers, and the layman, construction workers. We should set the tone to move into a referendum. This referendum, we should approach this referendum by suspending the next general election and vote for a constitutional reform and vote in a transitional government. This transitional government will set fixed election date and term limits for our elected leaders. This way we will move smoothly into the next general election cycle. I have put out writings and I've done a document that we're tailoring to put forth into a conversation that will accommodate this. I can't say a lot because this video is supposed to be 3 minutes and now I'm about 3 minutes and 35 seconds. So I will try my best to follow up and put more out in the next video. Thanks very much.
Audie Morgan. You see, when I tell you that there is thought, no, I asked you, did you want to be part of the conversation? So you're still pondering that. Believe it or not, the second question was, what kind of republic do you want to see? And you hear, we have the ideas. When we talk about first past the post, most of us, what you talk about? Winner takes all, we don't know what that means. And now we're hearing about a federal approach. I'm not saying it's not a great idea. It's worth thinking about. And this is what we want, a conversation about what kind of republic do you want to see? So that was Audie Morgan, president of the Cockpit Country Warriors, but we have another presentation in-house just now, Brittany Morgan. And I'm told that Brittany has a passion. This person put it in caps, a passion for her country, advocacy, and serving others. She's a final year law student. Brittany, were you there? Come up, please. Laptop and all. Brittany Marshall.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Today, I will be sharing with you the views of young adults on the Republic movement. Now, these views are from young people between the ages of 18 and 28 years old, who are from groups such as universities, church, my community of Castle Heights, and the diaspora. Firstly, let's begin with the most commonly held view that I came across. And that is that Jamaica should achieve the republic status like other Caribbean countries such as Trinidad, Dominica, Guyana, and now Barbados, because simply put, it's embarrassing that we have not done so. So ladies and gentlemen, the young people are embarrassed. We are ashamed that we haven't yet achieved it. They see this step towards a republic necessary in order to reshape our country and do away with the British desire of how former colonies should operate. Secondly, the young people are aware of the Constitution, its history, and the implications that a move towards a republic will have on it. It was expressed that the Constitution is an instrument of an order in council that was deliberated by their Right Excellencies, Sir Alexander Bustamante and Sir Norman Manley, with white British peers in London. One brilliant mind even said that our Constitution, according to Professor Simeon McIntosh, is not autochthonous, but rather it is derived from the British monarchy, and there was no consultation with the Jamaican people. In essence, it was neo-colonialism. Another view held by the young people of this nation is that just recently, we saw where the Governor General's insignia of the Order of St. Michael and St. George has a white angel who is standing on the neck of a black man who appears to be the devil, and how that was viewed and dealt with during the recent events of the George Floyd protests. It was said quite frequently that though many may not see the relevance, this is one of the many examples in which former colonies continue to bind themselves to our historical oppressors who show no interest in changing the status quo. Now, when I discussed the topic with young people who had a background in law, government, and political science, another soaring point that they had is that Jamaica becoming a republic is not only removing the British monarchy, but finally dealing with the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. They are inextricably linked. When many Jamaicans need access to justice, in theory, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council is the last resort. However, in reality, more often than not, the Court of Appeal is the last resort. What does this mean? Many Jamaicans cannot even afford a visa, plus the travel costs, the legal fees for an English solicitor and barrister for a few bright white law lords to hear their case. This undermines the rule of law, especially with the fundamental principle of access to justice for all. Now, not all the views received were positive. Some argued that a move towards a republic is not important, and we should instead focus on the economy and crime. Too many held the view that they genuinely do not see much advantage in becoming a republic versus how we currently are. Some asked, outside of getting rid of colonial masters, how will a republic help the society? There was one concerning view shared, which is that the country is not ready to transition to a republic, and that England should recolonize the island so that our currency will be and hold the value of the pound sterling. So essentially, all the anti-republic views from the young people stem from not seeing or understanding what tangible and financial solution this push provides to the bread and butter issues that exist in the Jamaican society. So what are my views? So my views are similar to the majority of my peers. The time has come for Jamaica to take charge of our nation. Take pride symbolically and have a president that is sovereign to the people of Jamaica, and not have a head of state that we should be sovereign to. Jamaica in 1962 was a new nation born out of the ashes of neo-colonialism under the disguise of independence. I ask you the question, how much different are we today? Republicanism is seen as a sharp rejection of colonialism and neocolonialism, and its rearing head of discrimination, inequality, and inequity. Although some argue that it is not important and we should focus on the economy and crime, but I say that is less relevant. It is less relevant because we find excuses to retain the British monarchy that has expressed time and time again that they people of Jamaica. A republic can mean more civic engagement, which equals to a strong and prosperous democracy with a government serving the people. I leave you with this. Jamaica needs a republic form of government where the people are sovereign and we pledge no allegiance to a king or queen. Ladies and gentlemen, God save the people. I thank you.
Nice. Well said, Miss Marshall. That last line had a lot to do for me. I have been practicing as an attorney for I won't tell you my age now, but 18 years. And every time you go to court, you hear, God save the queen. Now you hear, God save the king. And every time I stand in that bench, there's always one person who grumbles under their breath and says, about time we say God save the people. On point. On point. But I want to take you on something that we need to address as a people. Making this Republican conversation tangible to our bread and butter issues. We need to think about how we connect them because they are connected. Discrimination, inequality, lack of representation, how we get jobs, who get jobs, the nature of the education system. To me, bread and butter issues. But how do we explain that to our brothers and sisters so that they understand that governance is not just for the professors or the educators, but governance a FIWI issue. So this is why the Republic, a FIWI Republic. But that's just my thought. Here we are to share contending views and to start the ball rolling. So the first question, do you want to participate in the process? Yes? No? Oh, so not a strong one from you, Robert, but you're biased. Or you carry all the way here, so you can't talk. The second question is, what kind of republic you want? How you want it to be? How do you want the governance structure to look like? What you want out of it? So those are two of the questions that we posed here before. And I think we're going to take another presentation from Raheem. Is it Raheem's turn now? Raheem James, a second-year engineering student with a passion for robotics from CMU. He'll share with us the findings from discussions he's had with other youth members, including family members and friends. And whilst he comes, I'll just give you the third question. What role or responsibility do you have as a citizen of Jamaica or as a member of the diaspora have in creating the republic you want? Think about your role, not just my role now. So if you want to participate or you don't want to participate, if you want a republic, what kind of republic you want and what you have to say? What would be your role or responsibility? Raheem, over to you.
Again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Raheem James, and I'm here to present on behalf of a group of Caribbean Maritime students. And my colleagues and I have come together in agreement on the following terms. We no longer wish to have the king as our head of state. Secondly, every Jamaican should be involved in the process of reviewing and changing our constitution. Thirdly, our new republic must, and I stress, must strengthen our fundamental freedom and rights and our governance system and check and balances. We all must play a role in debating and agreeing on changes to be made in our new republic. Here, we have a discussion here on fundamental rights. Regarding our fundamental rights and freedom, which are our basic rights and liberties afforded to each individual, regardless of their race, gender, religion, or any distinguishing characteristics. These rights are typically enshrined in our country's constitution and other legal documentaries are designed to protect individuals from abuse of power by government and other authorities. One of the key aspects of fundamental rights and freedom is the principle of proportionality. This means that any punishment or penalty that is imposed on an individual should be proportional to the severity of the crime they have committed. For example, a minor offense should not be a severe or disappropriate punishment, while a serious crime should be met with appropriate level of punishment that reflects the gravity of offense. To make this more fair and more effective, there are several steps that can be taken. One approach is to provide greater clarity and transparency in the criminal justice system so that individuals understand the behaviors that are considered criminal and what punishment they may face if convicted. Additionally, there may be need for greater consistency in the application of punishment so that individuals are treated regardless of their background or other factors. Ultimately, the goal of any criminal justice system should be to balance the need for punishment with the need for rehabilitation and reintegration into society. By ensuring that punishment are proportional to the severity of the offense and considering any extenuating circumstances, we can create a more just and equitable system that opposes the fundamental rights and freedom of our individuals. Another point here is a public debt. Why do we always try to put ourselves in debt when we are the same country that goes by the slogan, eat what we grow what we eat? What meaning does eat what we grow what we eat have if we are not supporting our farmers and other businesses? We'd love for less importation and more development of our farmers and our exports. A way for the government to reduce its reliance on public debt is to reduce its imports and put more focus on exports. And by doing so, we suggest supporting our local businesses, industries, and promoting local products and services in foreign markets. And I stress, we must support our local businesses. In conclusion, we as the Caribbean Maritime students believe that it is time for Jamaica to become a republic. Our new republic must strengthen our fundamental rights and freedom and our governance system. And every Jamaican should be involved in the process of reviewing and changing our constitution. Let us work together to create a brighter future in our nation. Thank you.
I think we're the ones who are thanking you, Rahim, because you have centered the conversation now, not just on the participation and the kind of republic, but you have said some magic words, strengthening our fundamental rights and freedoms. I don't know if you get it, but what the student is saying to us is we have rights and freedoms. Remember at the onset, we said we are triumphant, proud, and free. So we have rights and freedoms, and we want to be part of the conversation, not just to water down the rights and freedoms, but to strengthen the rights and freedoms, a conversation that is to be had. So you answer the first question, you answer the second question, and we're now on the third question, which is, what is your role and responsibility? Because this is it, you know. Governance is not just for the people we elect. That is the mistake we have made for the last 60-odd years. Governance is us. No one should be asking who is accountable to who. We should say to ourselves, you are accountable to me. And by being accountable to me, I, as a citizen, is accountable to who? To the next citizen. Remember, we're accountable. We're working together. And, you know, I can't miss the Jamaica Land for Beauty. I tell you, I'm taking you through it this evening to stir the national pride together in our country, in love and brotherhood. We'll work and play in freedom as all God's children should, with hearts and hands united in thanks for everything that God has given unto us. Together, let us sing. You see the message? It is in the unity, in the accountability that we're going to be able to find a mission and a vision for ensuring that Jamaica in the next 60 years is better off than where it is today. We still continue to share our views. We have the views coming from different advocate network committees, groupings, and we'll share them with you because we want to stimulate your thoughts. We want you to leave here this afternoon thinking not just about participating, not just about what your role is, but we want you to think about what your responsibility is going to be. And it would be unreasonable for me not to ask you the fourth question, given that today is May 6th. Should the king continue to be Jamaica's head of state? And if me done first, what away? Me can't finish the question. We know way past that. All right. If so, why? And if not, why not? I don't want us to get into the fundamentals now. Just the basic question. Why not? And then we can start to flesh out where we go from there. So those are the 4 questions that our groupings were asked to ponder right across the breadth of this island, from Canefield to the sea, from Mandeville to Kingston. Did you know that Kingston have most of Jamaican population, by the way? Unfair, 2/3, but Kingston, everybody there. But in Kingston, let us start asking those questions. So we're gonna have a video, is it a video presentation, Mr.? And this video presentation is from our UE students. So over to you, Professor Opal, and I do apologize for the mic earlier. It's all right? All right.
Okay, so I just want to say welcome and thank you all for being here. So it's important, I've been in the academy all my life, I never left. And so it's important that we find out what our future generations think about the Republic in terms of where they want Jamaica to go. So I have been asking students, because I teach at the University of the West Indies, what do they think? And I'm amazed actually at the level of apathy. And it says how much we need to educate our people, because my politicalization, my awareness, my participation started when started before, but certainly got grounded in the university system. And it is there that we need to make sure that our students are not just working for a degree to earn money, but working to get information that will improve the society. And so this is their view. I also want to point out that at the back and also here are the 60 points that the Advocate Network as a group came up with in terms of why we wanted to become a republic. And it is an important historical documentation that many of us are not aware of the atrocities that were done to our ancestors over and over again. So I invite you to read the 60 reasons that we came up with collectively, and to just speak to students to hear what they have to say about becoming a republic. Should Jamaica become a republic?
So the answer is yes. However, not right now. We need to change a lot of our regulations and procedures first, with all the corruption that's going on in the country and where the government currently stands. I don't think we're ready just yet, but I believe that it's something that we should aim for.
So what do you think will make us ready to become a republic?
Off the bat, I'd say that we need to get more young people involved in politics. We need to start rallying. One of the biggest issues I think with Jamaicans is we don't really care about anything. We see it, we have an issue, but we don't go out there and like fight for it. And if we're gonna go into that state, we're gonna need to come together as a country to know that if there's something that we're against, we have to fight for it. Otherwise, what's the difference between a dictatorship? We're just gonna put somebody there that really there's nobody above to like govern them or make sure that what they're doing is right. So I think we need to establish ourselves as a society and work together for the common good.
Jamaica become a republic, what does that mean to you?
Definitely, I think it is shedding the colonization of our past, and it is moving forward so that we can govern ourselves. Despite that, I think that we need to sort out our internal problems
where it comes to corruption and certain ideologies being implemented in young people. And becoming a republic just means freedom to me. It means that we are able to govern and make our own choices. So I am for it.
Obviously, my first answer would be yes, just because like we've been, you know, the UK's biggest, you know, we've given the UK like our all at this point. And I genuinely do feel like Jamaica needs to move past this. I do understand that the effects of colonialism are deeply rooted, like are deeply ingrained into the minds of our politicians, as well as, you know, the structure of our politics and the way that we learn about things. Even as aforementioned, like, I think it's important that students are learning about things like what a republic is, and also just government and their civics and how they will be able to fight for their own rights, as well as you said before, like, you know, the country will be governed by the people, and the youth is a part of that population. So it is important for them to learn about what that is. But I would love to say that Jamaica should become a republic, but I also know that it's easier said than done. Like, I know that on paper we could become a republic, but everything would basically still be the same based on all of the systems that are already in place.
Yes, I'm not sure. You know, what even is the definition of republic? Like, I don't even follow politics or anything like that. So I'm not sure. Is it a case where it would make things more efficient, you know, economic wise and stuff like that?
Thank you, Prof, for sharing that. That's what grounds us. Yes. And some of you may be familiar with that view that some of my colleagues share about the lack of civil education. We're paying the price for it now because many of us as students don't understand the role of governance or how it plays or what it is, because we didn't get the education of civics for young Jamaicans. You remember that book? I don't know how many of you know that book. But when I went to school, we had a red book called Civics for Young Jamaicans. And in it, it shared what your responsibility was as a Jamaican, what were your responsibilities as government, and you know, that little education. But because we haven't had it, we have a generation now, and I will stand here without the fear of correction. We have failed a generation of Jamaicans. We have failed a generation of Jamaicans by failing to give them that little nugget that let them understand that being Jamaican is not just about having the exploits of a Usain Bolt or a Bob Marley. Being Jamaican is much more than that. And I think this is where we need to ground our conversations now, bring it back home, and have our young people understand what it means to be a republic. The question, what does that mean for education and economies? How that work? These are some of the questions that we're hoping that as the government does the public education campaign, which we hope they start sooner than later, that these are questions that they answer, so that we don't go blindly into the midnight choosing whether it's a president or an executive president, but we go with our eyes open, knowing that a new Jamaica will be understanding in full colors what it really means to be a Jamaican, and to really have that desire to participate and not simply say, oh, I'm not really follow politics. But to understand that being Jamaican requires that responsibility of being part of the governance. This is the beginning of getting out that percentage of voters that don't go out, that some people feel that they don't represent because they never go out to vote. But we're bringing every Jamaican, whether we're voting or we're not voting, to say we are Jamaicans and we're participating in the process. So we're going to have a share of the conversations that have been going on in our advocate network groups. We're going to hear from our co-chair, Robert Stevens, and we're going to hear from Mikhail Kojo. But I want to also share with you, for those of our listeners who are online and some of our present guests this afternoon, you'd have heard the mention of the 60 reasons that the advocate network put together some time ago. And this was when we were birthing. We were coming together and we're saying, this is the beginning of what is going to be the defining moment of Jamaica, and we want to be a part of it. And we start to say, we now ease up. We are share the information. 60 reasons, they're right around the room. They're broken into categories: conquest and transatlantic trafficking of Africans. One of the things that stand out for me, this is one of the reasons why we say we are owed an apology and we're owed reparations from Britain and its royal family for human trafficking. You hear enough talk about human trafficking, eh? For human trafficking across the Atlantic Ocean in the transatlantic trade in enslaved peoples, dislocating them from their communities, leaving many grieving families to wonder what had happened to their loved ones, and refusing to acknowledge the historic trade in Africans as a crime against humanity. That's our reason number 5. I will continue to share with you these reasons as we go through the afternoon. Co-chair.
You know, I've been sitting up front, and when I came to the front originally, we had about 10 people in the room. When I look around now, I see we're looking for space. And that's very encouraging. Very, very encouraging. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bobby Stevens, and I know I've been around a lot in various areas, but I think this is probably the most important assignment I've ever undertaken. And let me tell you why. I went on the campus of a school I went to about 60 years ago the other day, Jamaica College. And I walked into the prefect's room and I met with some of the prefects and I said to them, gentlemen, I would like you to get involved in the discussion of our new constitution. And all of them kind of looked at me and said, but, what really do we have to get involved in that for? I said, because it's your future. I dip on the slide now with a banana peel on one foot and the other foot in the grave, right? Because I gone over my, 70, right? But this country can be the Dubai of the Caribbean, the Singapore of the Caribbean. It can, Singapore came to Jamaica and Lee Kuan Yew saw things going in a certain direction. And him said, boy, I like how you guys operate, but I go and do it better. He left here and turned around his country. And today, their income and their country is way ahead of Jamaica. You understand? No, it's two different cultures. We have a lot of things here that we can be proud of. We are proud of the fastest man in the world, the fastest woman in the world. We're proud of Bob Marley. We're proud of our culture. Everybody in the world who meet me on the road say, I want to talk like a Jamaican and walk like a Jamaican. And I tell you one thing, them can't dance like me. You understand? Them can't dance like we, because we create dances. We create music. We are creators. And what we need to do is we need to begin to operate in an environment where we are allowed to really make these things blossom and bloom. You know how much people come to Jamaica and say, boy, I want to go to a reggae show tonight. But what? Very few venues that can have more than even 500 people, right? And many of them are in areas where you have noise control and various other things. We have the greatest culture and music in the world, and we're not developing it. The idea of a new constitution is for us to get everybody involved in discussing what are the things that we have now that we need to change. So I started with Jamaica College. I talked to some youngsters at CMU, and you heard from one of them earlier, right? I talking to out in Monroe College, Campion College, all of the schools, because I think that the schools and the universities must be totally immersed in this discussion. The other thing is that we all need to realize that you don't have to be no intellectual to have ideas about how we can change our country. It can come from the smallest child. It can come from somebody who them don't even have to go to school. Them understand some basic things. You heard the student from CMU talk about the fact that fundamental rights are important. The fact is, we have things in clauses within our constitution that are stated, but many of them are not adhered to. We need to demand that these things are adhered to. The other thing is that several of the students have talked about the level of corruption in our country. We have a situation where people are caught with their hands way down in the till. And what them do? Them get reshuffled, right? As a matter of fact, the greatest punishment is to be put in the office of the prime minister. That's not right. We need to change the way we operate in terms of dealing with those who break the law. Whether you is prince, king, or whatever, governor general, if you broke the law, you broke the law, and the law is applied to you. One of the biggest problems in Jamaica is a question of who you know and who know you. And also if we run in a way where the law is the law and it applies across the board to every one of us, right? That's why I don't claim say I am no saint, right? Every now and then I go in country and I broke the speed limit and the policeman flagged me down and said, "Bossy, stop." I say, all right. Me just quietly show him my license and I know some I expect to get the ticket and I know some I have to pay the ticket, right? Me not in this thing where you drop a money under the table and next thing you know the ticket fly away. I'm not into that because that is a sign of corruption. And what we need to do is we need to put ourselves in a position where we toe the law as well. We watch out and we make sure. And when we see people breaking the law, we say no party. And so it go. You understand? You need to toe the line. Ladies and gentlemen, it's our responsibility. When I look around the room, I can see that we have a very good mixture. We have people from old age, we have people young age, and we have people in between. That's excellent. What we need to do is we need to get the word out to everybody. Get involved in the process. We have said to the government, look, don't rush this thing. Don't tell me you're going to Parliament at the end of May, right? With a bill that is going to commit Jamaica to changes in a constitution, basically overnight. Whether we have been discussing it for 40 years or not. You have heard some of the students and some of the people that you talk to on the street. There needs to be public education. There are 10 chapters in our constitution as was revised in 2011. The problem is some of us don't even know so that there's 10 chapters in the constitution. And how many of them are those that we need to get rid of? There's one chapter called the Governor General. That the one there can just go so he, and exit out. Not true. Right. So it is important for us, take the document. It's not long, you know. It's just about 100 and odd pages. Okay. Read it, understand it, think about what in it makes sense, think about what in it don't make sense. There are several things under the fundamental rights that make sense. You don't want to change them or reduce the rights of people. What you want to do is strengthen them, okay? But there are other clauses, you know, things like the question of when a government can call an election. Should that not be something that is fixed? Should that not be something that we can claim is going to take place like clockwork? Instead of putting it in the hands of a prime minister who can wake up tomorrow morning and say, yo, it looked like the bell toll for we. So we're gonna call it down. You know what I mean? And because me wear clocks. The fact is this, I don't want to get political, but the reality is that that is where we have sunken to. We need to begin to get more realistic about the approaches to things where we're not into PNP or JLP. What we're into is good governance, okay? And it must be fair for everybody. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I think you exploited the fact that you're a co-chair, because that was more than 3 minutes. Did you, somebody say it's okay, you get mileage because you're a co-chair? So if we're late. So I wanted to, when you sign in, I went to check the register because I wanted to acknowledge the groups that were here. I noticed that there's a Jamaica household. Let me get it properly. Workers Union was almost right. Let me get half mark. Thank you so much for coming out. We want to hear what you have to say. So I'll look on the thing and I don't see no presentation from you. So you know me, I come around and I go ask a few questions after this because you were here first and early. So not taking everything. I want to hear from you. We have a video presentation from, is it Haile Mikhail Kodjo? I think he, in fact, if I am correct, he has actually drafted a document which he thinks is a reasonable starting point for discussion on the Constitution. Let's hear what he has to say. It's a whole new Constitution. Well, you see, that's the thing. As Jamaicans, we can contribute how we can. And remember, we started this by saying, bring your talents. So you bring your talent. We have a look at it, and this is what we do. We look and see what we can work with and what we don't want to work with. But that is the process. So let's hear from him.
Greetings, everyone. Xavier Easterling. May God give you good health. I am Haile Mikhail Kodjo. Many things to many people. I'm an Orthodox Christian member of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church here in Jamaica. My name, Haile Mikhail, is my Christian name given to me at baptism. My surname, Kodjo, is the name of my African ancestor who was stolen and sold here in Jamaica as a slave. He is the father of Kofi, who is the father of Alfred, who is the father of Septimus, who is the father of Othniel, who is my father. I have been involved in the constitutional reform program of Jamaica since the early 1990s. However, my recommendation was rejected. I have since written it under the name, We the People Propose Constitution of Republic Jamaica. It is designed to create a new and glorious history for ourselves and our future generations that shall increase our self-esteem, dignity, and integrity. It contains 86 articles in 7 chapters, over 40 pages with index and appendix. A new coat of arms and a new motto. The structure of the Republic of Jamaica Government Organization. A declaration of the Republic of Jamaica. This Constitution of Republic Jamaica, as the supreme law of the country, abolishes all present laws that are not in keeping with it. It has provision for amendments. The sovereignty of the country is vested in the citizens of Jamaica and is upheld by the Prime Minister as head of state. He is elected nationally every 4 years on fixed election date, the 3rd Thursday in February. The Maroons, as indigenous people, retain their ancestral homelands. Likewise, the United Nations Declarations of Human Rights and of the Rights of the Child are embedded in this Constitution. There is a policy for land development to remove squatting and make sure that people get rights to land. Very many more things are in this. You may get a copy by WhatsApping 1-876-225-1163. That's 1-876-225-1163. WhatsApp for a copy. Xavier Easterling. Kebre le Xavier Yehun. Glory to God.
You see? One of the things that comes out or stands out to me is having a constitution that increases self-esteem and dignity. Yeah, one of them, one of those nuggets that you take from the presentation and you applaud him as a Jamaican, taking the time. I know, well, sorry, I was going to say it's not cartridge paper because then it would really show my age. you know, when you write out on cartridge paper and put it up, but we're in a digital age and you see the work that was put up. You see that there's thought. And one of the things we should be doing in this process is encouraging Jamaicans to participate, to think, to share your views. Because when he shares a view and you share a view, sometimes we see things differently. And your view helped me to see things in a different way. So one of the things I took away is the importance of having a constitution that provided dignity and self-esteem, the importance of a constitution that had fixed election terms. The brother gave us a date. You can't say you don't know the date. And it seems to me a common feature when we talk to persons about what it is that they want. People still say, let's have a fixed election date. We still want to share with you. We're on time. When I checked my time, we were behind by 20 minutes, and I am going to officially blame the co-chair. I want to share with you another one of the 60 reasons, because that's what we're here to do. Now, reason number 17, and I choose them randomly. They're around the room. So before you leave, take an opportunity to read it. And if you can, we can share it with you electronically. For the cruel and inhumane punishment of our ancestors, for their heroic resistance to the institution of slavery, including for their insistence on maintaining African cultural practices, including birthing practices, and even claiming ownership of their own children. A lot of these reasons, if you have a look at them, give you a reason to understand why our family structure and our social structure is the way it is today. The way we treated, the way men were treated, the way families were disrespected, you were torn apart. Only the whites could have a nuclear family. The Black Africans, you never have no daddy nor no mommy. We never encourage that. The owner own you and send you wherever you go. Some of those things are hard to have as a conversation. And when we start that conversation, we don't start this conversation to blame anybody, you know. We start the conversation to say, what has been done? How can we repair it? What do we need to repair it? So when we ask for an apology, we say, acknowledge that what you did was wrong. And when we say reparations, we say, acknowledge that you took from us some things that belong to us. And because you took it, I don't have enough right now and I need. The econs among us, econic scholars could share and tell us what that theory is. I just think it is fair share. But when we have this conversation and we look at our constitution, it takes us to the point where we want to have that conversation, where we now look at our family structure, we look at the dignity, we look at self-esteem, and we have the conversation. Don't feel that what you have to say isn't good enough. Feel free to share it. And that is what the Advocate Network is providing through these forums. We have another, through this forum, sorry. We have another video presentation, or we're gonna do it live? We have a live presentation, nice. I saw you earlier and you look so ready to go. We have a live presentation, and let me check my notes properly to make sure that I am properly pronouncing. You're from a youth group. Savannah, did you properly advise me of her name, or is it that I can't read it? There, Annalisa, but Annalisa, where your name tag? I see your name tag earlier. That's why I did have on the name tag, you know, so that old people like me can see the name and remember. Please come and join with Annalisa and share with us your views on a FIWI Republic.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Annalise Nolan. I'm the General Secretary of Youth for Change Foundation. We are a foundation that is meant to serve the underserved of Jamaica's communities. We are focusing on the homeless, the youth, the poor, and this is an organization that I'm exceptionally proud of. I think it's important for me. To introduce my background to you all, as this genuinely informs my opinions on this whole issue. I'm from a community called Gregory Park. We are known more for gun violence than anything else. And this is not something that I'm exactly proud of, but I think it's something that informs my views on the government. The people in my community, they're the people who view the government as merely an oppressive and crushing force. They're the ones who send police in the middle of the day when we're playing football. They're the ones who make our community frankly not a very fun or safe place to live. So there isn't much trust or like for governing bodies, government agencies, any form of authority in that way. So that informs our opinions of a constitutional reform. In the first place, the language of constitutional reform blocks off a lot of people from these ghettos and the inner city, as we don't know what constitutional reform means. When you say words like that, people immediately blank out. What do you mean constitutional reform? What does that mean? Oh, we're going to become a republic. What is a republic? They are not informed, and if they are informed, they're apathetic. They don't really care. They don't see how this will impact their life in any tangible way. But I did manage to discuss this with a few of my friends from my community and a few high school friends. I attended the Immaculate Conception High School. No, I'm at you. Okay. So in my discussions of constitutional reform, we first began with talking about colonialism in general and Britain's past and continued oppression of the Jamaican masses. There was this unanimous feeling that what Britain had done to us and what Britain continues to do to us is unfair, it is unjust, and there's this general dislike of the entire royal ruling body. We are firmly for the creation of a republic, but while we understand what it would mean symbolically, we're not able to tangibly say how this would change our lives in any meaningful way. We're just like, yay, get rid of them, we're tired of them, but like, what are gonna do when them gone? There's also this idea that the people who are making up these committees, they don't really represent us. I did some research in my discussions, and it was noted that most of the people who are a part of the committee are lawyers, and ghetto people not trust lawyers. I'm not trying to diss any lawyers or future lawyers. I'm just saying the truth. We don't have much trust for these kinds of governing bodies, and we are either mistrustful, ignorant, or apathetic to their role. So the very idea of our constitution being decided by a group of lawyers who have probably never stepped foot in a ghetto in like 20-something years is absurd to us. And there's also the fact that there are probably no youth in this entire body. And when all of them old people are dead off, you know, and we left with the constitution. When all of them lie here, them dead off in like 20, 30 years, and me have 40 something, and me have to go live with it, and my people them are gonna live with it. So we are confused by this idea that it's people who are so advanced in age who will be deciding our future, a future they will not be there to live with. There was also additionally in the idea of creating our constitution, what does the reform actually mean? Does it mean just replacing the prime minister with a president? Or will we be going with the parliamentary model where there is a prime minister, opposition leader, and a figurehead president? Or will we be going with a federal model where there is a president who presides over everyone? So there was also confusion in that. There's a lack of public education as to what will change when this reform happens, how it will be changed, how our presidents will be elected. We were ignorant, honestly. We had to do quite a bit of Googling in this discussion because nobody never know nothing. And a lot of the websites with information were quite wordy. I'm a university student and I got bored halfway through. I was like, you know what? If I saw me, I could go find out, I'm not go find out. The language used was not accessible to the average Jamaican. The average Jamaican does not have a university degree. That's a simple fact. And if the information available is not relatable or understandable to somebody without a university degree, is the information even valuable or useful? We also propose the idea of simply copying a country with a successful constitution. Can we not just like thief where Barbados do? We can. well, not completely plagiarize it, but maybe take a page out of their book, take some inspiration. You know, what kind of freedoms did they strengthen? How did it make their country better? Maybe we can use that. Is it purely symbolic? Does it actually have an impact? How will these elections go? So these were the questions and the opinions that my peers from within my community and from EMAC, those were the opinions that we shared. In general, the attitude that I got was that most people were either apathetic, they really, really did not care, or they were ignorant, they had no idea what it was. They couldn't tell an A from Bullfoot, and they really didn't want to know either. Or they were simply just, okay, yeah, get rid of them. Yeah, man, go on with the wicked white people, them. Freedom. There was that attitude also. But I think in order for this entire thing to work, in order for it to have any kind of public awareness, to change the perception, it would require a strong public education campaign that came down to their level. This campaign would have to use language that they were familiar with. It would have to come to them on their level. Maybe do one cartoon. Everybody know the No Dirty Up Jamaica song, right? And that stays with people. If you come on TV and talk about constitutional reform, them go watch it, and when them go in bed, them sleep it off, them wake up, them don't remember nothing. You have to use language that will be remembered by Jamaicans for the months and maybe even years that this entire process will happen. And I think we should be aware of every step of the way and involved in every step of the way, especially the youth. But as I said, when them dead off, we are going to live with it. Thank you.
So, hello. That's Annalise Nolan. She's a student at UTEC, the General Secretary of Youth for Change, and they are a phenomenal youth group. When I tell you that they're doing some fantastic work, and they're doing fantastic work most times from donations they themselves are making, their own contributions. So thank you for the contribution that you have made, not just through your presentation just now, because I just realized that I am part of the group where I got dead off and left you. And me kind of, fun and joke aside, in preparing for our constitutional reform conversations, I had often wondered if when the Constitution was originally being crafted, if the population, the age group of the persons who sat and thought about it, if they had considered that that which they were doing would have generational impact. So when she says it that way, it kind of did lick for six. And I think it is something to consider. I would say, however, because one of the things I strive to do and the Advocate Network strive to do is to maintain, we maintain the facts and be on point. So the Constitutional Reform Committee does in fact have a youth representative. He is under 30. I believe his name is Mr. Sajay. I'm sorry, Sajay, if I'm massacring your name, please forgive me. But it's Mr. Boswell. Sorry. He's a colleague, he's an attorney. And I was thinking about the mutually exclusive circles that we used to draw in math. So I was saying that he is under 30, so he would be young. But should them not trust lawyer, and I am one of them, he would be excluded because he's a young lawyer. We're going to have a conversation after this about the lack of trust for lawyers. I think I need to rehabilitate the reputation of myself and my colleagues. Just have a small talk outside after this. Excuse me? No, me not go down that road there with you. It's well deserved. No, sir. Look like a whole on now, but we're here to discuss the Republic. We will not stray. We're not, miss. We're not, I mean, like that slogan there, and I don't like it till we need one, but we're not here to talk about them. Reality is though, we're gonna get to our question and answer, so you can throw in those questions and have that conversation as to why it is you think that they were mostly lawyers. Do appreciate that the explanation is that albeit they are lawyers, they do come from different groups. And so you would have to appreciate that when we have our discussions, we can make the suggestions at the first go of the constitutional reform. If you were listening to Professor Trevor Monroe or Professor Hamilton at their other presentations, you'd have learned that that committee had a host of other persons, trade unions, members of nurses, you had teachers, you had farmers. So when we had the young representative earlier saying, look, we want to know how it will work for the farmers, that was a consideration at the first go. And so it is a valid question. Narika Longbridge, 20-year-old student. Oi, as much time as me need, Papa. All right. I'm a job, me did I do. But I know you're eager to get to the question and answer, but we still have some videos to share. Narika Longbridge. Is it live or we're gonna go? I have it.
Hello, it's Narika Longbridge. My university at I'm a student at the University of the West Indies, and there's a broadcast. Well, there are initiatives that are catering to young people like me to educate and to gain their opinions on the Republic. And for example, the Republic is aiming in order to rise up the youth, like myself, and speaking to my peers, not a lot of them know exactly what it means to be a Republic. And even when I give them the gist of it, they say that, oh, definitely. A lot of young people, I feel the same way as me. They perhaps do not understand completely what it entails, the processes, the external pressures, or what is going on currently with the government. But whenever I tell them that it is essentially removing the monarchy, they say that, yes, that is what they want. They see it as well as a part of our colonial past or something that is not necessary. Now, when it comes to the ceremonial versus the executive, then perhaps the opinions blur. But the youth of this country, we have a voice, and we want better for Jamaica. We want us to move past having a head of state that lives in another country that does not represent us culturally, racially, in any form, and that has a history behind that has a history of oppression and injustice. And we want for a reformation of the Constitution, and that is going to take, I know, a lot of effort, and I also understand that it is not as simple. So our main goal should be to educate people, to educate not only people my age, but people older, so we can all be on the same page, so we can all understand what it takes for Jamaica to be a republic. So thank you, and tune in for the show.
Another example of the concerns, the requirement for education, and it's an appropriate time. Having looked at the questions that we shared with you earlier as the 4 quarters of our considerations, we are now at the question and answer segment, where you'll get to ask your questions. Professor Rosalie Hamilton will guide us. Professor Trevor Monroe is here as well, and Professor Opal Adiso. Will you join us to answer the questions from our brothers and sisters who have some questions or concerns that they wish to raise? Is Miss Pat Green here? I've not seen her. Oh, is that
Testing, testing.
To our guests online, you are included in this event. Please raise your hand. Once our technician sees your hand raised, he will indicate to you, or to me rather, who it is that wishes to ask a question, and you'll certainly be included. Right, so we'll include you in this discussion. Are you ready, Professors? Are you ready? Our first question this afternoon. Good afternoon, sir. Colleagues and friends, please, let's listen to our. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Joseph Buckland. I'm a minister of religion, also lecturer at the Jamaica School of Preaching and Biblical Studies International. I have a fundamental question to ask, and that is, on what basis do we determine which court of final appeal we should accept, whether it is the traditional UK Privy Council or whether it is the Caribbean Court of Justice? The reason I'm asking that question is that I notice that emotions are played upon when we say that we don't want to be subject to King Charles III. And therefore, on that basis, we should leave the UK Privy Council and go to the Caribbean Court of Justice. But I think a more fundamental question we need to ask is, on what basis do we decide that we will get a judgment from a court of final appeal that is based on that which is fair and honest and impartial, rather than on the basis of whether this court is linked with the UK or whether it is linked with the Caribbean? Now, briefly, from my observation, from my study of this whole situation, I am of the opinion that the UK Privy Council has a reputation of taking a case from different overseas territories and some republics that are linked to them historically, and to judge the cases according to the constitution of those territories and those republics, so that even though they are in a different culture, that does not affect their decision. The decision is based solely on the constitution of the country which is presenting a case to them. On the other hand, just give me about 1 more minute. The Caribbean Court of Justice, there's a whole lot of arguments that could be made why we should go to the Caribbean Court of Justice. They are our Caribbean brothers and sisters. They're in the Caribbean. We have this similar history, the similar past, tradition. But we have to look deeper. There is a judicial code that governs how judges are to rule on cases. That is dated from May 26, 2020. And in 5.1, 5.6, and 5.7 of the Judicial Code, to paraphrase it and to summarize it, it says that a court can only be legitimate if the judge rules on the basis of diversity and inclusivity. Then it goes specific. It says that the judge must not rule against anyone because they are of a different, quote, sexual orientation or gender identity, and that the judge must take preemptive action to remove any lawyer that is arguing on the basis of showing that sexual orientation and gender identity is wrong. So, based upon the 2 courts, are we going to say, let us go to the Caribbean Court of Justice because they are our brothers? Or are we going to say, let us have a court that judges strictly on the basis of constitutional matters.
That's the question, sir?
That's the question.
Take another question. All right, so we'll take one more question and then the panel will respond.
The last time that was done. The last time that was done, I think you were there Tuesday night.
I wasn't, sir.
The last time that was done, the chair used him brain to dilute the memory about the question and behind. All right, I am a Rastafari. I do not worship Haile Selassie. That's not what Rastafari was about. It's afterwards some man and woman start connecting a religion. Rastafari is not a religion. Rastafari rise up in Jamaica about 100 years ago to challenge the crown of England and the colonial government in Jamaica. That's what Rastafari rise up about. Now, I was so glad when I heard a few people, especially some young people, point out that we, the people, are sovereign. I was 14 years old when independence 1962, Jamaica College with Bobby Stevens. And we, the little youth, object. We saw right through everything. We saw right through the whole thing. And we know that Bustamante and Manley and others were co-opted. We used to talk about them things from them time. Were co-opted and went along with the British formula, which would guarantee them to be embedded and in control of the Jamaica government for the foreseeable future. Now, the people being sovereign, the United States Revolution is a beautiful revolution and constitution, even though the United States is far from heaven. Beautiful because it was such an advance. They decide to push off them relative of England and them craft some documents carefully and them say, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Something is self-evident is because it is so plain it is evidence of itself. This mic stand is self-evident. It is so self-evident that certain rights are imbued in every human being. The right to happiness, life, the pursuit of all them things is plain as day. And to preserve these rights, we going to set up certain things. And also, we the people of these United States are sovereign. And through that now when you commit a crime in America, it is because you violate the welfare of the people, not because you violate the king or the queen. So therefore, in the United States, when somebody charged with a crime, they are charged, say, you lawyer. So don't tell me what to do. When this guy was talking a little while for 3 times the time that I talked so far, don't tell me what to do. I don't want to talk some short word in here. You will not bully me.
Sir?
And it going to come to a fight.
No, there's
just
no fight.
like in the United States.
Sir, you are explaining.
Don't tell me what to do. There was a lot of discussion like this in the 13th colony for decades. And it reached, and them wouldn't.
I just want to
the educated people always gravitate to the establishment.
I just want to
and
get
that
your
is
question,
why
sir.
it come to a fight in the United States. And I tell you from now, it's only a fight in the Jamaica. We're going to straighten out this thing.
Why?
Because the educated people are groomed to take side with the establishment that they may be upward and mobile.
So what's the
No question, no further
question. Understood.
You may cross-examine.
All right. May cross-examine you after. But he has. Good evening, sir.
Can I wait till them?
Certainly. So you're going to give this gentleman a chance now?
Take a chance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're gone already? What's your question, sir?
All right. So I'm going to at least be transparent in going to at least be transparent in saying I do want to make a particular point before the question, but it's
Okay.
related to the question very much.
Very well.
It's a premise for the question. So earlier you mentioned that there's a youth representative on the committee.
Yes.
We don't really see this person as a representative. I should
Okay.
identify myself. I'm Christoph. I'm Christoph Simpson. I work with a group called Jamaica Lands. We're a network of 9 groups who've been organizing together. We have a similar but a little more formal structure than the Advocates Network. So getting into that now. So why we don't see this person as a representative? Somebody cannot appoint somebody as a representative on another group's behalf. So most of us are under 30. Most of us are born after 1995. You cannot appoint somebody as a representative on people's behalf. And the reason that there's an issue with so many lawyers on the committee is the average person is not a lawyer, not well-versed in law. Lawyers have a function in telling us, you know, how law will play out if things are worded this way or not. But they cannot be on the committee deciding the proposals. It's we who have to decide what we want the country to look like. So earlier you mentioned that in past attempts at constitutional reform, they included broad cross-sections of people.
Yes.
That's still the case in some countries now. So in Venezuela recently, they actually held an election for the body that would write the new constitution, and it was sectoral. So farmers elected the farmers' representatives, and different sectors of society elected their representatives. We can call for something similar. So my question now is, would we want to push for that? Would we want to push for either a renewal or replacement of the Constitutional Reform Committee? Is that in line with something we can see ourselves being activists for, whether calling for some sort of assembly election for the body that determines this, or we just decide, as you have persons developing their own proposals, we decide that even if the government doesn't want to recognize us as official, we're going to campaign unconditionally for a no vote, and then we're going to write a constitution and find a way to impose it.
So if I understand you clearly,
Mm-hmm.
you wish to have a representative that is recognized or elected by the youths, not appointed on behalf of the youths.
Well, this is not specific to the youth. So I made the youth.
No, I'm
yes,
just taking it one step at a time.
yes, but the same for other sectors as
And for
well.
the other sectors, so the second step would be that the committee should also include a wider cross-section of persons who represent them.
Yes.
Okay. And if you don't get that, the question that you're putting is, do we ask for a renewal or a replacement of the committee so that everyone can be represented?
The question I'm asking is if the Advocates Network would be prepared to push for that heavily.
The Advocates Network is a grouping of people like
Yes.
you. So the
I know,
question
I know.
is, are we? Remember, I don't know if you heard my question earlier, what is your role and what is your responsibility? So
On the
if it
same page.
is that the different groups and individuals here, that the takeaway, the message is that we are to say to them, look, this is what you're asking for, then as a group, we ask for it.
So I'd love to see more follow-up to this so that the same set of people can meet again and craft paths forward, including this. So whatever we decide the consensus is, if this is a path of action that we want to go about, or if we want to define it more before we go about it, I think it's something worthy, because we cannot have people that are disconnected from us and disconnected from the average Jamaican at large to decide what the constitution should look like. And then at the end of the day, all we get to do is mark on a piece of paper, yes or no.
Thank you. Sir, I took 2 questions. If you just, I crave your indulgence. I want to hear from the panel with respect to the first question that was asked about how do we choose the CCJ, the final court? Do we choose the CCJ because of their connection to us, or do we stay with the Privy Council?
First of all, Madam Chairman, I'd just like to congratulate the Advocates Network, of which I'm a proud member, for putting on this particular function, this gathering, and to go immediately to the issues that were raised in the questions. Number 1, public education. Public education, number 2, public education, number 3. That has to be the beginning, the middle, and the end. The question you asked, sir, is a good example. How many of us here know how the courts, the Caribbean Court of Justice judges are chosen. How many of us know how the court is funded? How many of us know about the Privy Council? That we can't go to the Privy Council unless you get a visa. That's like saying you have three arms of government. Legislature, that makes the laws, Parliament, Garden House. The executive, which gives you your prime minister or your president, and the judiciary. To say that the Privy Council should remain our highest court is like saying that we should have a visa to go to Garden House, that we should have a visa to go to listen to our highest courts. It makes no sense for your highest court to be so disconnected from the people, quite apart from issues of expense, quite apart from issues of culture, that they do not have access. If someone were to tell me that I can't go to God knows to listen, that would be the equivalent of having the Privy Council as my final court. But beyond that, the judgments that have been handed down by the Caribbean Court of Justice, and I have looked at a couple of them, not enough to be sufficiently educated, but enough to know that these judgments are very much aligned to justice. And to that extent, my support for the Caribbean Court of Justice is not primarily or only on the issue of an emotional attachment, and emotions are important, but on the basis that we need to have a court funded by us. Jamaica supports and funds the Caribbean Court of Justice. That's how it was set up, with judges that we can respect based on their line of argument and the practice and the judgments they have handed down, and also based on the fact that we can have access, easy access to them, in the same way that we can have access to Garden House, in the same way that we can go and sit in the Supreme Court or in the Appeal Court to hear what is going on. It is not, makes no sense for us to have a court that we can't hear, we can't go to without permission, without getting a visa. That makes no sense to me. But beyond that, the judgments of our Caribbean Court of Justice are of quality and justify us making that our highest court. Thank you very much.
May go ahead, ma'am. You need a mic. We want to hear you, and we also want the persons on Zoom to benefit from what you're saying.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. I'm wondering, why is it that we are posing this issue in terms of the Privy Council or the Caribbean Court? If Jamaica is sufficiently big and bad to kick the king today out of its governance structure, why is it that we can't have our own court? Years ago, Jamaica voted against a political union in CARICOM. That means the top echelons of our governance system, the cabinet, the parliament, the Senate, the judiciary, all of those things, we voted that they should not be one with the Caribbean. Why is it at this stage we are going to be telling people it's a choice between the CCJ and the Privy Council? Nobody wants the Privy Council, but what about our own court?
And I think you heard Professor Monroe saying, ma'am.
CARICOM is not a political union. If we put the judiciary or the final court in CARICOM, put your parliament, put Wilmington, put the whole of them down there. But we don't need that, at least not at this stage, not in my view. And I think it's a political agenda to be pushing the CCJ. I'm not concerned with the Privy Council. That's their business. We want a Jamaican court.
And that is one suggestion placed on the table, whether it is a final court here in Jamaica, whether it is going to be a final court in the Caribbean, or whether we remain with the CCJ. And I believe what Professor Monroe said earlier about public education is important. We need to know what your reasons are so that we can be informed. Sir, before I don't want to interrupt you because you stood here before. I'm going to take your question and then we're going to go to our colleagues online and take questions from them. But you were standing before. Could you go ahead for me, please?
Yeah, you have all lawyers on this committee with the constitutional reform. What about people who have been professionally trained or educated in public policy, right? So they know the appropriate standards, you know, to affect the change that is necessary, because it's pure colonial institutions that we have. And I mean, that's been representing in brutality. You pay your taxes and you have a man with guns stick you up all the while in the name of the government, even for a traffic ticket. What does sovereignty and freedom really mean? And is our history and our culture being applied to this constitution? Is not just a reform we need, it's a whole change. You understand me? Is our Africanness being reflected in it?
Take your point, sir.
Thank you.
So you're looking at what the and freedom really mean? What's the role of history, and does our constitution take into consideration our culture, our Africanness? Let's go to our colleagues on Zoom.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Craig Powell. Hi, Dr. Monroe. I have a question for you guys. And it's Craig, the Craig Powell that you know. Okay, so I heard the statement re the Privy Council versus the Caribbean courts, but I have my own fear. My question I wrote was, how do we protect ourselves from the Jamaican government influencing the Court of the Caribbean in cases versus companies or individuals or rich Jamaican / powerful people corrupting it in civil cases against each other? For me, I look to the Privy Council reversal of the Supreme Court tax penalty on careers limited, and that thing has me deathly afraid. Although I do agree it's expensive to go to, but I'm wondering if we sign up for this republic, which we mostly believe that, well, the average Jamaican thinks that a lot of the politicians, a lot of the people that live here are corruptible. If we believe it's corruptible, will we permit this corruption? And is there any way to counteract this? And are we ready to actually have a final say? Because I'm just afraid of that. So that's one question. And the second question is, re the president, is there any thoughts around having it be a non-appointed position, someone outside the political process who can, you know, basically not get corrupted by having to deal with that system and be elected on a fixed cycle separately where we can elect and choose? Is there any thoughts on that? Thank you very much.
So you're looking at the impact of corruption in the courts, specifically looking at how the Jamaicans would protect themselves against big business, big money, and the whole role of corruption, and also whether or not there's any consideration being given to a non-appointed position of a president.
Yes, and so big money goes both ways. I'm also saying, how does big money protect themselves from the government, and also how does the individual protect themselves from big money? So it goes both. Like when Carreras had that big tax bill, which they were able to reverse. I mean, I know government when they issue these tax warrants, it's mostly you're guilty until proven innocent, and that type of collusion is something I'm afraid of on that side, because I would love to have a big business. And separately, I can also see how a big business person can easily corrupt people with flights, things, money. And I mean, Jamaica, there's tons of examples of deals that are happening for government bids or other things of that nature. And I'm just afraid on that side. So it's both ways, both businesses being protected from the government and individuals being protected from businesses and powerful people.
Thank you for that. Professor Monroe?
I wanted to deal with an earlier question, whether we're talking about reform similar to that issue are we talking about a whole new constitution? And I believe, again, it's very important for us to understand. While we are speaking here, there's a committee that's meeting, and that committee controls the process of getting change in the Constitution. Why do I say so? The 1962 Constitution put us literally, if not in a prison, in a lockup when it comes to changing it. There is no way under the rules and under the Constitution that even 100,000 Jamaicans saying that we want A and we don't want B can change the Constitution, except two things happen. One, the two parties who are now in the parliament come to an agreement, and two, they vote on that agreement and then bring it to the people. So what those 15 men did who signed, who met in 1961, 62, and developed that constitution which the British approved, is said to us generations after, you can't change this thing unless the two parties in the parliament, and they made sure to have protections for them, decide what is to be changed and then put that to the people. I'm saying this in order to say that we need to make certain that our gatherings like this one, the Bethel gathering, which was so very well attended and had a number of people online, that these impact what is going on amongst those who sit under the co-chairmanship of Minister Malahoo Fort and the former general of the army. If they don't impact it, then what we're going to be left with is a very, very difficult choice. I think somebody raised it. If they don't listen to us, then our choice is to vote no. But believe you me, for me to vote no about moving a British king at this moment, I have to tell you, I don't see how I could do it. I do not see how I could vote no and then make the king continue for the next generation. So we're in a dilemma. We have to make sure that what we are saying impacts those people who have to agree before a referendum can come. And therefore, we need to educate ourselves on some of the issues that have been raised here. The money issue, for example. It's a big issue. Right now in the United States, you're hearing how much big money was being given to a Supreme Court judge in breach, and not just one. And they hold themselves up, as you know, for good reason in many instances that are democracy. In our case, not one of us in this room know who pays the piper and calls the tune in relation to our political parties at elections. The Electoral Commission, they know, and that's good because that's a step from where we were before. Our Electoral Commission, they know who gives how much money to the parties. We don't know. So I'm saying that there are a number of things that need to be done once we clear that first hurdle. Can't clear 10 hurdles one time. When I was at school, for my sins as a hurdler, if you try to clear 10 hurdles one time, you fall down in the first one. So we have to clear the first hurdle, which is getting a question that can be put to the people that we can vote yes. And right after that, we have to get all these other things that are being discussed. How we're going to control the money.
Right.
How do we control our politicians? Right now, you elect a man, and no matter if he doesn't go to parliament or he does nothing, you can't move him under 5 years. The right of recall is what we need, but we can't get it before the referendum. We need to clear that hurdle and then make sure that we get all the other things. And let us be clear, guys. The fact that we can sit here and have this meeting and no police outside it, maybe taping the meeting, and that's good. Many republics in the world, this can't happen. So I believe, sir, and I know many of us agree, changing to a republic by itself while I'm fully supporting and we need to cut the ties with the monarch, we have to do a whole heap of things right after that. Because there are others, there are monarchs in Sweden, in Denmark, in many of the Scandinavian countries, and their parliamentary system works well. So we have to get rid of the monarch, but change the governance arrangements so that we, the people, can really hold to account all of those in authority. That's hurdle number 2 after we clear hurdle number 1.
I take your point, Professor, that we have a lot of questions. So you started off by saying public education, public education, public education. So we get to know more and we get answers to how the judiciary will work and how the courts will function. But you're also saying to us that we have to separate the issues and not tie them to so many other things, because there are many other things that we will need to do to get governance right. I want to hear the comments though, Dr. Perkins, from our listeners online. Could you share some with us, please?
Sure, we've been having lots of engagement from the persons that have joined us online. So just allow me to pick out 1 or 2 of them.
Please.
And then they're pretty much in line with the conversation around the judges and the courts of justice, and even going into the direction of the president. So Mark, I'm going to pick on your comment, Mark Cameron. Mark says our judges are influenced by those who put them there, as well as the DPP. And he said that's a serious flaw. Okay. Then if I look at what Claudette Stewart is saying, she's asking, is there a job description for the person who will be the head of Jamaica under the new republic? And what are the roles and responsibilities of the president/leader of the republic? And of course, Prof, I do know in your response, you have been touching on that, because this is part of the conversation that we're having. We need to speak among ourselves about what it is we want, and therefore how that will be reflected in the job description of the person. Give me just another second or 2. Denise says this reform should also include provisions in the revised constitution for equitable contribution from the government of Jamaica to fund election campaigns for all qualified candidates in our general election. So there's something here where there's a concern about how we fund our election in a way that prevents it from being taken over in the way that is happening now by the political parties and so on. So there's something of that going on there.
One more.
Let's do 1 more really quickly. I'm seeing Mark, thank you. Craig, thank you. You're very engaged in the conversation, and we thank you for the point that you continue to make. Craig points out that we have a serious fear of the unknown, and he's owning that fear and saying that others of us also are fearful. And I think, Prof, you probably will want to, Prof, or 3 Profs, we probably want to reiterate that part of diminishing this fear is this kind of conversation that will help us to understand what we are fearful of and how by participating in this conversation, we can address our fears.
Thank you, Dr. Perkins. I can't take any more from you. We are running over time. Way over time before they ask us nicely to leave. May I, however, I'm making a difficult choice, sir. I want to hear from 2 persons who haven't said anything. I've been limited to 2 persons. I would invite you, sir, to perhaps speak to our panelists after, if you don't mind.
I have a short comment I want to make.
Can I please take the comments from the 2 persons behind you, please, just so I can hear from them, and then I can hear from you if we have enough time. So grateful. So very grateful. Thank you. Ma'am, thank you. Yes.
My name is Janet.
Janet, could you speak up loudly so we can all hear what you have to say?
Can you not hear me? Can you hear me now? All right, my name is Janet. I'm a lecturer at the University of Technology. Professor Monroe spoke on it slightly, but I would like him to elaborate a bit further in regards to this change initiative. My first time I'm hearing about the organization, so I may be asking a question that may have been
just
asked by someone before.
Don't worry about it.
What plans are in place to become a republic country? What is being done today to move towards being a republic country? What happens to the information that you hear today or you've heard in other meetings like this? So when you hear the data from the concerns of the people, what happens to this data? Is it just data that you hear and then it just goes away and we all talk about it
and we come back and speak about the same thing again, what actually happens to the data, to the voices? Are they put somewhere which will then work towards a referendum, or like what Professor Monroe said in regards to taking it to the Privy Council? What training or conferences are in place to educate the people to, someone spoke on identity, but more from a gender identity? I've been back in Jamaica for 15 years, and one of the concerns for me when I first came into Jamaica was just identity crisis in general. Not so much to do with gender, but just in regards to the mindset of the individual people. I know this is a country that was colonized or slavery, but we're in the 21st century. It can't be that we keep on blaming colonization and slavery for where we are today. We talked about places like Singapore or Barbados and what they're doing there now. What are we actually doing rather than talking about it? What plans do we have in place? What people are in positions? What training plans? What is there in place that's tangible that we can say, okay, these are our targets. This is what we're moving towards. This is where we are today. And this is where we're going to be in the next 6 months. I believe in plans that take place 3 months and 3 months, gathering together. This is what we achieved today. This is what we still need to achieve. This is where we're going. So it's all again change. And also, one of the things was to talk about the allegiance to the king, which I don't agree with at all. I was always surprised in regards to, I remember I went to a training camp down by the training camp in South Camp, and I was quite appalled really to know that I was in Jamaica, a country where I wanted to come to, which was nearer to Africa, and found that when they were there, everything was to the Queen at that time. So like, what do we do? What is the change initiative to take that step forward?
Thank you, Janet. And the person to answer that question is Professor Rosalie Hamilton. I think it would also be part of our summary, because we do have a summary right after the second question that will tell you what will happen with the voices that we hear. So Janet, I'm going to put your question to the end, because right after this, we do have a summary where Professor Hamilton will tell us exactly what will happen after this hearing today. Young, is begging me a blind? You know, them things there is corruption, miss, but I never take nothing from you. So make it short. All right. Not you, sir. The one behind you, we want to skip the line.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Greetings. So my name is Warner Bernard. I am the chairman and founder of the Greater Change Foundation. We are a nonprofit organization, and our aim is to give back to marginalized communities, and we like to see change. So my question is, as Jamaica removes the crown as the head of state and develops a governmental construct to support that, does this necessarily mean that we no longer be a part of the Commonwealth Alliance? And if so, will we be able to form other strategic or economic alliances or develop new beneficial international relations? That's my question.
Wicked question. And I think the economist, the professor there in the middle, she will answer that question for you.
All right.
All right. Prof, I'm going to take one more question. Sorry, may I just take one more question? Not you, sir. Thank you. Not you, sir. Not you. But you're going to get your answer. My lady in yellow, short.
Thank you so much.
You're
My
welcome.
name is Daniela Hickling, and I'm from the University of the West.
See, I wasn't being a Daniel to a Daniel, you know. I didn't know that you were a Daniel, so I wasn't showing any favor.
Listen, I accept.
All right.
Okay, my question is, it is really about the issue of consultation. And yes, Daniela Hickling. Okay, now the issue of consultation and the inclusion of perspectives of the Jamaican people. Now, we've been speaking about political education, and we find that that is still just a one-way discussion. It's about people receiving the information, and it's about the feedback loop. Now, should the Advocates Network develop a methodology, propose the means by which the data collection, the analysis, and the integration of Jamaican voices island-wide and are integrated in the feedback process?
Thank you so much. And the importance of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Perkins, could you please, sir, we'll take your questions after we can speak directly to the professors, but we're trying to wrap up. All right.
All right, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm not going to spend long. I was just asked to find some common threads running through the presentations that we've heard so far, and tie it in as well with our questions. So here's what I'm thinking we should walk away with, if nothing else. 4 letters: FEEPFF. Is that 4 letters? All right, so let's come again. FEEPS. And it's not a word, but make it a word, FEEPS. So the first thing we seem to be talking about and are engaged on is our future. This is about the future of the Jamaican people. It's particularly about the future of our young people, the one that say we old people who are dead off and left them with a constitution that is really not about their growth and their development. So we want to reiterate that this conversation this evening is about the future of the Jamaican society. It's about us taking ownership of who we are and how we govern in ways that reiterate and strengthen our human dignity. Okay, so for me, it's about us reclaiming dignity and moving beyond this colonized identity and experience that we have heard talked about. Tied into this, I hear too the need for us to rebuild trust. So much has been broken, even just by our history, but certainly how coming out of our history, our constitution has shaped us as a people. So we have to sort through about rebuilding trust in government and governance and other bodies and other peoples and other communities. So we're reclaiming and we're going to work at strengthening fundamental rights and freedom. So that's my F, future. Let me go real quickly. I see Madam Chair hovering. E, everyone needs to be involved. Everyone needs to be involved. So we heard about consultation. We are speaking about ownership of our governance. We heard very eloquently and very passionately from many of our young people here this afternoon. And we did hear the divide. There is a divide. There is a bit of apathy in some spaces. But what I heard was a willingness to be part of that. We and that everyone that is involved in this process of ownership of our governance. So that's my first E. So we the people are sovereign. My second E is about education, Prof. Education. Yeah, it's coming up over and over again. We have a lot of admitted ignorance. We have a lot of admitted apathy. We also have an inability among many of us to make connections between this discussion around revising, revamping, reshaping, take it and tear it up and rewrite a constitution because we're not able to make the connection, be able to speak how it speaks to the bread and butter issues of our lives. So education for participation is my second E. And we all want to be involved in the deliberations, but we need to be informed. And Daniel kept talking to us about information and sharing information and how that shapes how we're able to respond in the space. So education for participation. Then I'm going to go to P, and for me, P is process. And it's speaking not only about the process that's been engaged by our government right now, and Rev spoke to us earlier, why are we rushing this thing? There is no need to rush. We need to open the process, slow it down, and allow as many, if not all Jamaicans to be engaged. We have to ask questions about practicalities of this process. What will a revised constitution look like? And we've heard it in different ways being asked. Here with us this afternoon, we had a really brilliant suggestion about a federal rather than a parliamentary constitution. We were introduced to the We the People Constitution. We are also recognizing that the process, which we're saying slow it down, include everyone, is a process where people are pushing back, particularly on the nature of the committee that is in train to do the discussions and the consultation. And there's a sense of disconnect. There's a sense that this committee in particular does not represent us. And we've got some broadsides against a particular profession because people from the ghetto themselves are feeling, not involved in the process. So maybe we need to write a new constitution. My last word is support. Let us continue to support the process. We are moving beyond symbolism. we are going to be in a space of calling for reparations and apology, and that this is not the end of a process, but it's the start of one, so that all Jamaicans will see themselves reflected in that document that shapes how we live together and how we grow together into the future. Thank you very much.
And as we wrap up, thank you so much, Dr. Perkins, for giving us a summary of what has happened. Before I forget, important to tell thanks to Mayberry Investments, Lasco, and Tasty. These were our major sponsors for this afternoon. And you'd have noticed that some of us are walking around with t-shirts saying Happy Republic. Please feel free to go to the back after you finish to purchase one. Their shirts are $3,500. Have not forgotten your 2 questions. Professor Hamilton, could you come for me and answer the question along with you're negotiating among the professors who will take it? Very well. And Ms. Pat Green, could you please come? I know that you have often addressed the questions about the blaming colonialism and our current issues. So I wish for you to answer that question and for Professor Adisa to also respond to the question. And if I beg you 2 minutes, we have Dr. Jennings here. I know we beg him to come, and I'm trying to find space for you, sir. So we'll beg you 2 minutes after that to come up, and then we'll wrap. Thank you so much for your patience. We're now ease up, so beg a little bit more time so that we can share some information with you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your patience. I quickly want to respond. I heard a comment from somebody asking the question about, are we still blaming colonialism for our problems today? In response to that, it's not a matter of blaming colonialism. It's for us to have the facts. And I heard Professor Monroe said, educate, educate. That's why I came up. We talk about access to beaches. The law that governs access to beaches is the Beach Control Act that is dated the 1st of June, 1956. Do your maths. We had independence in 1962. The Town and Country Planning Act, which governs development across the nation, including rural and urban development. It is dated the 1st of February, 1958. The Crown Property Vesting Act is dated the 16th of June, 1960. Do your maths. Understand the controlling aspect of our nation and our current development process is really being controlled by colonial laws. They may have had a little tweaking of maybe 1 or 2 clauses over the period, but the dominant laws are colonial laws developed before 1960, and that is what is prevailing over our society today. These things need to be dealt with in the Constitution so we can move forward and alleviate squatting. Thank you.
This is where you get the information. So you know what laws existed before and what laws existed after. Professor Adisa, your turn.
So I'm going to be very brief.
Please.
And I just want to say 2 things. One is what Professor Monroe said is that we need to do, it's in 2 phases. So one is we need to disband of the king. And the second thing is to take time. And I really want to endorse what the young man said about representation. I really think we need to advocate for that, so that we need to have someone appointed by the youth, someone appointed from the farmers, someone who appointed from different constituency to represent this reformation and this whole constitution reform. I think that's a really important process.
Professor Hamilton, what's next? Oh, I forgot, Dr. J. I forgot you again, sir. I'm sorry. Yes.
All right, let me just, if I can, well, I've done a PowerPoint presentation. I'll share it with you.
Please.
By email. But I won't try to go through all of this now, because on 2 minutes I have. So, firstly, I want to say thanks for the opportunity. Something else I think it's critical to understand. I told people that I have changed my occupation. I am now a florist, right? And so I speak here coincidentally on behalf of a group of us. There are about 250 of us in a group called Forum. And we have been deliberating on current issues, of which this is one. I should also say that out of that, we have published a number of compendia. One of them, one of the latest ones, which is available on Amazon, is titled God Save John P. John P. Yes, in inverted commas, right? And it's dealing with the issue of shedding the sort of colonial cloak in which we have been wrapped ourselves. A critical point is that I am 73 this year, right? Probably you're pinched from by a few based upon what I'm in this. But this is my very first opportunity to participate in any deliberation of this nature. And I have a fear that Professor Monroe is actually saying we should wait longer. I also represent my 3 grandchildren, and that's very important to me, because I've been waited 60 years in a system that really hasn't served us. And just to go and go through the process of the cosmetic change of saying get rid of the king. And there are so many critical defects in our constitution. Are my children to come to another thing like this in 60 years' time? Right? So no, well, we can't wait that long. Otherwise, our generation would have done them no good. Right? And this is really what I am confronted with. A critical point is.
You can only share one critical point, sir, because I'm running out of time.
All right. Let me get to the real crux of the matter. I had a table here which was meant to show the real alienation of Jamaican people from the political process in Jamaica since 1989. And that ought to underline any sort of moves to improve or to ameliorate the situation so that people become interested in their real political life. Because that's what the word republic in its original meaning meant, right? It is the sovereignty of the people, right? And that has got to underline our thing. But the 30, what I call the percentage voting age population turnout at the 2020 election was 32.8%. And that has been coming from 1989, right? And for this last 7 elections, the voting age population turnout is 45%. So where are we going? We have alienated the people from a process from which only certain people are benefiting. And the Constitution has to address that. My personal feeling is that Jamaican voices ought to be saying, disband this committee, right? And go to a proper Constitution Reform Commission and the Wooding Commission model that was used in Trinidad, I think is an appropriate way to go, and that it really could report back in about 18 months after real consultation.
So we take your point, more time, having a better system of consultation. And we look forward to you sharing your PowerPoint so that we can share it with our members. We're going to wrap up now. Dr. Hamilton, Professor Hamilton, please give us a summary. I think what's on everyone's mind is what's next. But before you do that, we had one question which remained unanswered. Does Jamaica, upon becoming a republic, can it still be part of the Commonwealth?
Just a quick answer to the good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us, being here and engaging in this important conversation. I'll just make some quick responses to the questions posed, and I'll start with the last one
about the Commonwealth. Yes, there are countries who have left the king or the monarch as head of state and have retained in the Commonwealth group of countries. In fact, there are countries that have never had a history of colonization by the British. Right, exactly. No, right. So it is possible to make that choice. And I think the discussion there is about how do we modernize an anachronistic institution, the Commonwealth set up with former colonies, to something more relevant today. So that's for another conversation. But I do want to say something about the issue of the adequacy of the representation on the committee. I think we should broaden that conversation for the young man who made the point to the adequacy of the representation of our members of parliament who go to parliament and don't quite represent our interests. And if they did, perhaps this conversation will be had with them. Because remember, we've gone through an elaborate electoral process to have them represent us, to speak for us in parliament. This issue is a parliamentary decision that has to be made. So in a sense, we ought to have been working with our representatives to go to parliament to carry our views so we have an outcome. Now, of course, we don't trust our parliamentation. All the data tells us that. There's very little trust in government, and so we have an issue. So the republic that we're trying to build must involve all of us. And that point has been repeated several times, not only in terms of the decisions about the Constitution, but the way forward. And I think, to reiterate the point that Trevor made, we have to take these things in stages because it's a lot of issues that needs to be addressed. And we're talking about issues that have come since emancipation. I heard a young lady speak about this issue of the Republic is about freedom, fundamental issues of freedom. Freedom, a concept which we've been struggling with since emancipation. And when I heard this young woman in 2023 talking about it, that point was made. It's a long process. And we talk about winner ease up in the Advocates Network, but it really is an important phrase to capture the idea that the citizens must in an ongoing, continuous basis, be involved. We can't stop. It's not enough for us to elect our officials, then fold our hands and wait till they do what they do. We've done that for 60 years. And we've seen that that approach to governance is not working. And so we have to deepen our democracy. We have to create spaces. Someone made a point about, for example, our Africanness and our culture. All of that must come to the fore. The issue of the corruption and, the issue about business and so on. We've been losing a lot of money every year. The estimate $100 billion annually we lose in corruption. That's the estimate. Now, we have to, in this thrust to our republic, tackle the issue of the adequacy of our oversight of the executive decisions that are made in parliament. It boils down to that. We need much more scrutiny, and the people we elect to represent us in parliament must do that as a core job. That's their responsibility, to provide the oversight on the executive who are making these key decisions. It is when we can do that more effectively that we begin to curb some of this corruption. The issue was raised about the role and responsibility of a president. That is key. We're giving labels to the president, executive, ceremonial, elected, whatever, but we have not had that conversation, what it is that we want our president to do. And I think we have to be thoughtful about that, because if we want our president to help us in this challenge of making our voices heard and in deepening this democracy, then that's a job description we can put for our president. The last point I want to make before I wrap up is the fear of the unknown. Somebody said it. It's a very important point. That fear is a legitimate fear. We're not sure where we're heading. In fact, let me say this. At emancipation,
enslaved Africans did not know where they would get food the next day. Right? No land was given. No opportunities were created. But they were bold enough to take that step. Bold enough and confident enough to say, we will make our way on our terms. That's our history. That's our history. And after 60 years, the things we're most proud about are the things we did when we stood boldly and proudly and created a new music that the world enjoys today. When we boldly say we are going to train our athletes right here in Jamaica, we don't have to depend on foreigners to train them. That's where we've developed our strength. And so I want to say to Jamaicans, be bold. That's in our DNA. That's who we are. That's the boldness of our national hero, Marcus Garvey, right? And he told us that that's the confidence we need to move forward. So I want to say the fear is legitimate. I understand it, but we have to be bold. I want to really thank all of you for being here. You know, we couldn't have done it without a lot of people. We've heard about the corporate sponsors, but there are others who have supported and really don't even want to be recognized. We're creating a global movement. There are Jamaicans in the diaspora who are strongly engaged, actively engaged in what we're doing. They care about this country. There are Jamaicans all over who have used the opportunity of the flyers and the posters and all the social media that we've used to share it. And we thank you for amplifying our voices as we make our message heard. So I know that there's concern about where we go from here. I want to start by saying, and to answer that question about how does all of this information get, where does it go? It's an excellent question. And in fact, one of the issues we've raised with the Constitution Reform Committee is how will all of this information be processed? So if you get our voices and our views, clearly every single voice will not be represented in a final decision. So we have to compromise. And that's one of the reasons this kind of discussion is important, because we have to coalesce around some core ideas. So Anna has done a good job, I think, in trying to, what is it, freeze? Feeps, right? That's a way to coalesce around some ideas, right? And so we're going to do our best job. We'll do the best we can in pulling the ideas together. And we intend to present them to the Constitutional Reform Committee. What they will do with it, I don't know, but we hope and encourage other Jamaicans to make their voices heard, certainly at the level of the committee, so that in the final analysis, at least there's a body of information from which to make some decisions. I think the feedback that's out there loud and clear is Jamaicans don't want a president that is simply ceremonial and is not going to represent the interests of the Jamaican people. I think that's very, very clear. And that is one position that we certainly want to put on the table. We will continue our citizen participation campaign. I want to say this, that nearly a year ago, in fact, it was May 17th, we did a press release entitled Advocacy Network urge Jamaica, urge the government to reveal the timeline for becoming a republic. So since May last year, we have been advocating for a government-funded education program. That's what we've said. We absolutely need that. We had a whole year missed, and we're now rushing to the finish line. That's not good enough. So we will continue to put that on the table. We will continue, in fact, in addition to the advocacy around that issue, we actually started public engagement, and we started from June last year. June last year, we had a dialogue. In fact, the Minister Malahoo Ford and the opposition representative, Donna Scott Motley, were there, and they agreed that this public engagement is important. And so we have been arguing that we need to get the voices of Jamaican people heard. We don't have a lot of time to talk about what we've done, but I want to say that Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, JAMP, led the way in a 7-series session, online, offline, about the Constitution in collaboration with the National Integrity Action, Institute of Law and Economics, and of course, members of the Advocate Network. And together, we have been pounding this pavement about talking to our voice heard. So while we wait for the responses, for all the things that we've been advocating about, we've been talking about, for example, making sure that there is more transparency in the process, making sure that all of this discussion is not taking place in secret. We talk about weekly updates. All of that has been on the table. While we wait, we will continue our campaign. Now, the campaign is global. Some of you would have seen our press release where we joined 7 Caribbean countries and other Commonwealth countries in that who still have the king as head of state. And we joined First Nations, Indigenous people, advocacy groups, all of us coming together to talk about the role of the king in a modern world, leading these nations with no apology, no reparation, and no repatriation of artifacts and remains. That's not acceptable. So we will continue this global efforts to make sure that the debt that's owed is paid. And that will be part of our advocacy. And then lastly, I want to say we'll continue our collaboration with the Jamaica Council of Churches. We will continue this conversation on the Constitution. We'll do that next week in Maypen. And we want to encourage all of you and to tell your friends and family to keep the conversation going. Talk to your friends, talk to your co-workers, talk to churchgoers, partygoers, everybody, because this is our future. Certainly, it's the future of the generation to come. I want to just lastly say this, that we heard from the youngsters. I must say, I'm very, very pleased to hear. I heard a colleague said, our future is in good hands. Just listen to these young people. Give them a big round of applause, please. And I want to encourage the educational institutions to really take this mantle up. Begin the public education in your classroom. And I'm glad to hear we have lecturers from UWI and UTech here. In your classroom, have the conversation. And the one thing that these young people should know is that the power is in their hands. And that ultimately, the power of the people is greater than the people in power. Thank you very much.
So we have arrived at the end of our journey this afternoon, and I am pleased to have begun the recognition that this is my generational obligation. And as we close, I want to remind you of our pledge. Many of us did this pledge together, so I ask you to stand as I lead you in reminding you of this pledge that we said many moons ago. And upon this pledge, we will remind ourselves of where our loyalty stands. Help me if you do remember the pledge. I pledge my heart forever to serve with humble pride this shining homeland, so long as no. No, stop again. If we do the night class, we have to do it properly. So we don't remember it because we don't do it long time, but you see the point I'm making. These are things that remind us of where we are and where we live and our loyalty. So let's do it one more time. I pledge my heart forever to serve with humble pride the shining homeland ever, so long as earth abide. I pledge my heart this island, as God and faith shall live. My work, my strength, my love, and my loyalty to give. O green isle of the Indies, Jamaica strong and free, our vows and loyal promises, O heartland, tits to thee. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our heartland, it is our home, it is our country. Let's be loyal and give our strength, our work, and our love. Good afternoon.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know I always want the last word. I'm going to say one thing. Thank you for coming. And I'm also going to say this. I believe that we had a very successful afternoon. Do you all agree? All right. The whole idea of this is to spread the word. And any of you that want to become members of the Advocates Network, just ask us. Thank you. Take care. There is patties at the back for anybody who wants patties. There is water and some juice at the back as well. Not fancy, but join us.
Can I get a lockdown for the lady? Body woman, say man, that's in the face. Woman, man, everyone should feel this way. And then start again, now you feel rape and kill and walk again. Crime rate and the real pandemic. Our government now pandemic. Want justice with Jasmine Lee. Send them make we hang them out. Justice. Up overflow and then I never justice. The gold dirty crusty boy and some people look and them still not talk. Woman them a live in a fear and it's a living affair. Make a post on the grandma so you wanna get killed. You're not killed. You're not killed. For the lady, emergency, treated with urgency. Body woman, them not safe and not stare us in the face. Woman, them not safe and everyone should feel disgrace. Now ease up. Now ease up. I'm some naive. Now ease up. Mama cry, intense eye water. Smarty broke bad son gone with our daughter. Lifeless body, lamb to the slaughter. See that you know you feel play your part. Tell Uncle Joe, tell Auntie Lana, tell everyone you know make we sound the alarm. And under alert and you can't keep calm. Oh, you see them so calm. Come let me tell you about the real pandemic. Them boy, their life it done like phone credit. Telling you the truth, I may not try edit. Them out of half a tree. Yes, I said it. Real bad man, them boy, you rise the bright. Cause when the woman, them scares, them I go try entice you. Sit down and I wonder if a back door nice you. If not, then make some nice. Now, now. Say, can I get a lockdown for the ladies in my murder? State of emergency, treated with urgency. Got the woman, them not safe and that's there. I still love me. I say we now ease up. Me and them say we now ease up. Some night. Ease up. Lockdown for the ladies, them a murder. State of emergency, treated with urgency. God, the woman, them a say that a stare us in the face. Woman, them not safe and everyone should feel disgraced. Nah, ease up. Me a tell them say we nah ease up. Make some nice. Nah, ease up. Tell us say we nah ease up. Make some nice. You wanna King Kali big bad hashtag gonna ask. That we attack make a hear that they hear that. How is the red city now pity not time?
Testing.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't already know by now, please head to the back of the room and pick up your patties, some Laska Eye Cool water and some drinks. And yeah, have a nice time. Thank you all for coming.
Say, can I get a lockdown for the ladies? Them a murder. State of emergency. Treat it with urgency. God, the woman, them not safe and that a stare us in the face. Woman, them not safe and everyone should feel disgrace. Death penalty fi start again. Now you feel rape and kill and one walk again. Crime rate and the real pandemic. And our government now pandemic. Want justice with Jasmine D. Send them make we hang them out jungle justice. Upper overflow and then I never justice. Big old dirty crusty boy and some people look and them still not talk. Woman them a live in a fear and it's a living affair. Make a post on the grandma so you go like you care. You're not care. You're not care. For the ladies, I'm emergency. Treat it with urgency. The woman them not safe and not a stare us in the face. Woman them not safe and everyone should feel disgrace. Now ease up. Now ease up. I'm some nice. Eyes up, mama cry, intense eye water. Smaddy broke bad son gone with our daughter. Lifeless body, lamb to the slaughter. See that you know you fi play your part. Tell Uncle Joe, tell Auntie Lana, tell everyone you know make we sound the alarm. Another alert and you can't keep calm. Oh, you see them so calm. Come let me tell you about the real pandemic. Them boy, their life it done like phone credit. Telling you the truth, I mean not try edit. Take them out of half a tree. Yes, I said it. Real bad man, them where you rise the bright. Cause when the woman them scares, them I go try entice you. Sit down and I wonder if a back door nice you. If not, then make some nice. Now, please. Now. Say, can I get a lockdown for the ladies? Them a murder. State of emergency. Treat it with urgency. God, the woman, them not safe and that stare us in the face. Woman, them not safe and everyone should feel grace. Now ease up. Say we now ease up. Some nice. Now ease up. I say we now ease up. I mean, I think say we now ease up. Some nice. Ease up. Can I get a lockdown for the ladies? Them a murder. State of emergency. Treat it with urgency. God, the woman, them not say that I stare us in the face. Woman, them not safe and everyone should feel disgrace. Nah, ease up. Me I tell them say we nah ease up. Make some nice. Nah, ease up. Tell them say we nah ease up. Make some nice. You wanna King Kali big bad hashtag gonna ask. That we are make a year that they hear that. I we is the red city now.